Hello and welcome to episode number 6 of Policy in Wonderland. I'm your host, Evitar Amira. You can call me Evie. In Policy in Wonderland, just like Alice, we are going to explore and see the wonderful world of insurance, insurtech, and everything that connected to this amazing ecosystem. In Policy in Wonderland, you will meet startups from all over the world, key figures, and more. So without further ado, I want to invite my guests to join me as we go down to the rabbit hole. Please welcome Kate Terry from Surround. Hello, Kate.
Hi, Hi, Evie. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really happy to talk to you today.
Thank you for being here. And first of all, how is the weather right now in Boston? It seems
Today
like,
is
feel
a
like
really chilly
minus
day.
chilly
Yeah,
day.
it's below freezing, well below freezing, and windy. So,
Mm.
although I have to say we were supposed to get a really big storm yesterday, and we don't even have a dusting of snow out there. So it's been a disappointing snow week.
So, okay, right now in Israel is just disappointing windy and just
Mm,
it without any snow or rain, but that is the weather right now.
yeah.
So, Kate, can you start by giving us a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I am a career-long insurance person. I love this industry. I think we do good work and it's full of good people doing interesting things. Started as a product manager at Progressive way back in the day, had a bunch of states in the Southeast, moved on to Plymouth Rock when the Massachusetts auto insurance market was deregulating, which was a wild ride.
Wow.
And then most recently was at Liberty Mutual for 6 years as a senior vice president, commercial product management, this time instead of personal lines, before I up and left to co-found a startup, which is Surround Insurance. And so what we're doing at Surround is trying to make every young adult's first insurance purchase delightful.
What is most interesting, commercial or personal lines?
Ooh. Oh man, which of my children do I love the most? Is that what you just asked me as a first question? um, so I think that there's an aspect of what I find interesting about each of them that's totally different in terms of topic, but similar. One of the things that I think is fascinating about insurance is the complexity and the fact that you need to be able to abstract and simplify that complexity to make change. So on the personal line side, what's fascinating is you've got all this data about consumer behavior. And you could think of it as, oh, what I'm trying to do is drive claims costs down. Or what you could think of it as, I'm trying to make the world a safer place, right? And I kind of prefer to lean into the second, and you can do that because you've got data. On the commercial side, it's not so much the customer data, because sometimes you actually don't have much customer data, which was
You
shocking to me
don't.
when I went over there, right? But the complexity of situations and coverages and the variety that you see in all of the ways that you can build an insurance company, and an insurance policy in all of the various different markets, I think is sort of fascinating, and cracking the nut of how to match what somebody needs to what's available out there is a similar but different problem that's around managing complexity.
So I will just quote a LinkedIn page. I think you're
Oh,
pretty familiar with. That, that's why I'm in insurance. I cannot control who will get hurt in an accident today or who will lose their business to fire. What can I do is put them back together afterward. That is
yeah.
why I do, this is what I do every day. Help make life more fair. Do you really
Yeah.
believe to the one that wrote
Yeah.
that? Yeah,
I do. I really, really, really do. I mean, certainly I didn't go to fifth grade, fifth grade career day dressed as an insurance agent, right? Saying I want to be in insurance when I grow up. Few
really?
people probably do,
No,
unless you,
really?
yeah. I
Yeah.
did not. No, I'm just joking. Like,
Okay.
no, I think I wanted to be an archaeologist, which would be a little bit different. It's still the science of human behavior, I suppose. Um, I came
Even
to
me,
insurance. Yeah,
you see, I just right now
I
Jurassic
love it.
World,
I love
and
it.
this is also was my one of my first dream to be archaeologist. So yeah,
See, so
because
you
this
and I
one.
will both have a second career someday where we'll go dig things up, right? But until then, it's insurance.
Great.
Um, no, I had two moments very early in my career that really, I think, made a difference to me. The first was that now I'm going to date myself. I joined Progressive as a product manager in July of 2005. For those of us who are ancient like me, in August of 2005, Hurricane Katrina came flying through New Orleans, causing immense destruction and human misery. And I was new to the industry, brand new to Progressive. And what I saw was that Glenn Renwick, the CEO, stood up and said, we are going to pay people for a total loss without having them find the car, without trying to repair the car because of the biological contamination of the floodwaters. What we're going to do is do the right thing. We're going to write checks to people on the spot. And I remember looking at the videos and being down there with our claims guys afterwards. And we were writing checks to people who had their belongings in like a little plastic bag because it was all they could escape with, standing in the dust with like, you know, the US Army Corps of Engineer and whoever had spray painted on the side of houses, things like one gray cat found here. And these tallies of whether they'd found like bodies in the house spray painted on the side, right? And in the midst of all that devastation, it wasn't the Department of Insurance that made a decision. It wasn't some other regulator, wasn't FEMA. FEMA, I think our claims adjusters actually got there faster than FEMA did. It was the CEO standing up and saying, this is going to be a big loss and we're going to do the right thing. And then the rest of the industry had to follow suit. And so I think that was like a moment that kind of imprinted this on me. And then the second was sort of in a similar time frame. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, the people who do the crash test dummies, not the band, the actual crashes, is in Virginia, rural Virginia, and Progressive is one of the funders. It's industry supported. And so we went on a tour. I was out of the Richmond, Virginia office. We went on a tour one afternoon and they took us through a museum on site where they have displays of some of the cars they've crashed over the years, right? And I remember seeing, I don't know, maybe it was like a 1980 Mitsubishi Lancer. It was one of the first vehicles they had tested. And the B pillar, which is the strip of metal between the front door and the rear door in the car,
Okay.
you know, they actually don't drive the car into something. They hit the car with a barrier. The B pillar had basically broken and bent inside so that it would have impaled the driver, like certain death, like big hunk of metal. I mean, like standing there looking at it was like really kind of upsetting. But then they had one from 3 years later. The next time they had tested another Mitsubishi Lancer, and because they had published the results of this test, the cabin had remained completely intact. I mean, the car was totaled, but the cabin had remained intact, and the occupants would have survived, right? And you stand there and you look at that, and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, it's about reducing economic costs, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is capitalism, which is a terrible system except for all the alternatives, right? But it also, in reducing cost, you're saving lives and reducing misery. And in some ways, having the money of the industry and the goals of the industry behind you to accomplish that gives you tools to do things on a grand scale, like protect everybody who ever drove a Mitsubishi Lancer back in the day, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I do think it's real. There's lots of reasons to be in the industry, but at some point it's a choice, and what drives you, that's what drives me, right? Keeping people as safe as we can.
So could you elaborate on the problem that surround him to address?
Yes. Yeah. So there are a few things that my co-founder, Jay Grayson, and I noticed about younger adults. And it makes it so that insurance products are not
Just
available
a
to
sec.
them.
What is younger adults? What is the ages that you
Yep.
are into?
So realistically, we serve people between the time that they finish college or military service, maybe, you know, young 22, 20s, up to about 40. It's really more a lifestyle than it is an
Okay.
age. Because one of the major things that has changed is that people don't buy things the way they used to, right? Which is no surprise, except we've got an industry that's called property and casualty insurance, which is framed around property and the casualty that's sort of associated with that by and large, right? But if you don't own things, you're still exposed to risk, and you still have, you know, a future stream of earnings to protect, even if you don't have wealth right now necessarily. And many times the insurance products, it's not even that the insurance products aren't there, it's that translation layer of saying, oh, you don't own a car, but you drive. Yes, the product exists. Let's fit you to the right product, was missing. So that's one piece. The second piece that we noticed, which is more of a distribution thing,
So,
is that,
sorry
yeah,
for that.
yeah, go ahead.
Let's go for the first phase. Okay,
Yes.
like, okay, I have car insurance, I have home insurance, and so on. So
Yeah.
right now, what you saw is that you don't have insurance products for all the younger adults. that is like a new version of insurance that you need to provide.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's because that sort of progression of I'm going to, get my first car at 20 and buy car insurance. And then I'm going to, get married and buy a condo. So I'm going to have condo insurance. And then we're going to buy a house and we're going to have 2.1 children. And so we need life insurance and all of that. That pathway assumes a certain lifestyle, and it assumes a lifestyle that is less and less common, right?
Mm-hmm.
People don't pair up as much. They don't buy property as early. They
Right.
rent apartments. They don't necessarily even own cars. There's, a very significant proportion of younger adults don't even have a driver's license, which was not so true, 30 years ago or 40 years ago. So in some ways, the assumption that somebody's going to go auto, condo, home, life insurance is kind of mired in a way of life that doesn't necessarily reflect how many younger adults live. So what happens if you're a medical resident, right? And you're renting an apartment because, oh my goodness, who can buy when you don't know where you're going to end up after your residency? And you're borrowing a friend's car from time to time, and you're taking a Turo or a Getaround or whatever companies are local, or a Zip car. If you get in an accident and you injure somebody, there may be some base level of coverage. A lot of those services offer a state minimum limit. So it could be, 1530 or 2020, 25, 2040, 2550, depending on what state you're in.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody sees that you have an MD after your name, if you've injured them, there is zero chance that they're going to settle for $25,000 worth of injury, right? I mean, that like barely pays an ambulance bill and an ER visit in the US these days. So how do you protect yourself in those situations, right? And those customers are often viewed as non-standard by insurance agents and carriers because their needs don't map to the perception of who a preferred customer is or who a preferred customer will be, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The products exist, but they require the patience of fitting the right product to the right person, right? So I think that's a major thing that we've noticed in part.
So this is the exact, I think the exact thing that, yeah, the product exists,
Yeah,
but we in the insurance world or the insurance
yeah,
industry, we don't know how to approach or how the customer can consume this kind of new
yeah.
products
We
because
don't
we are
see
talking like
them. Yeah,
exactly we don't see them and they don't see us as
no,
insurance. They will not think, okay, I rent a car for my friend for the
yep,
weekend. Do I need insurance? They don't even think about this question, or this is not cross to mind.
yeah,
And so how are you dealing with that kind of thinking of
yeah,
how
yeah,
you can approach to the customer and tell him
yep,
you need to consume, you need to get insurance because
yeah,
one, two, three.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, educating people who don't know they need insurance is hard. And it's certainly a piece of what we do, but it can't be sort of the first piece for a startup because you'll never
Uh,
survive, right? You don't
of
have enough
course.
time to educate people and grow as much as you need to. What we were surprised by as we started doing the research was that there are a significant number of people who are looking for these kinds of coverages, or
Hmm.
at least looking to solve the problem, right? Like they're aware that driving the car off the lot without making sure you've got insurance may or may not be a good idea, and how much do they actually need, and what if they're using the Zip car now more frequently. But oftentimes they've perhaps tried to go to maybe their parents' insurance agent,
Hmm.
and have been kind of brushed off because they don't fit the kind of homeowner with two cars in the household picture that many insurance agents are looking for. Or they've asked the question repeatedly and got kind of lousy answers from friends who are like, yeah, it'll probably be fine, which if you're even semi-risk averse, which many young professionals in particular are, that's not a great answer. So where do they go? They go to TikTok, they go to Google, they look for that information online. And so we actually were able to find people who were trying to control their risk and just couldn't get the answers. Like the number of customers who've said things like, you're the fifth company I called and nobody seems to know what I'm talking about, is really rather amazing. Like, let me give you a specific example of something that's hard. So there is a trend towards long-term car rentals over an app, right? There's another number of companies out there that are doing this. The thing is that because they're long-term car rentals, it's not really a rental car insurance policy. It's really something that is the same as kind of a leased vehicle, or it's a regular auto insurance policy. But if you call Geico and said, I just rented a car through an app and I need insurance, they're going to tell you to go talk to the rental car counter because the language is different, right? And you're like, but there is no counter. There's just this app and I can add some insurance, but I don't know if this is what I need, that sort of stuff. So to some degree, if you can hit on the terms that are actually being used and then sort of do the bridge between what they're looking for in their own words and the protection they need, which usually exists. I mean, everything that, this industry has invented a million kinds of policies for a million different purposes, and then sort of combine the two, you've got a thrilled customer who feels safe, right?
And yeah, we just talk about the TikTok channel that you
Yeah.
You know what? Let's see. Let's just push the play.
I love this video.
You're also kind of a star from TikTok.
Surround insurance. We're the company with the lighting. Surround insurance. Need some insurance? Surround's got you. Everyone.
You know what I loved in this video? It's not all, first of all, the whole video, but especially the, phone, just phone.
Yeah.
And this is like in a word for me, just explain all the situation about insurance. You need insurance? Okay, take the phone and dial to your insurance agent you don't familiar with. Okay, talk to your parents and they will direct you, and so on and so on. And I just love this sentence. Phone, just phone.
It resonates, doesn't it? But yeah, we are the company that wears hoodies. I'm not wearing a weird hoodie, but I did bring my startup cred here in my hoodie. So just so you know, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is, so we have a bunch of agents who are part of the Surround team who are really amazing with customers, and we specifically hired people who were mid-career, not brand new to what they were doing, and who score sort of highly in terms of warmth and connection. So they're people who know insurance, so they can answer all these like younger people have all sorts of like vaguely weird insurance questions. Like, I have my dad's car and I'm living in Virginia for the summer, but only for the summer, but the car is registered in Georgia and my permanent address is actually where I go to school in Rhode Island. What do I need? That is a solvable problem. That is not a solvable problem when you're typing, into somebody's app and trying to figure out what to put in for like state and whatever, right? And so what our agents are really, really good at is connecting with people in the channel they want to use and answering those questions warmly and knowledgeably. And that's huge. Like if you look at like our Google ratings, they're all super high and they're all about service, right? Nobody's ever like, that's an amazing policy you got me, right? Instead, they feel heard and they feel like they got fit to the right thing. But most of our customers prefer to text with us. So, we use like a voice over IP platform and all the texting is through the computer and whatever. But we text back and forth and give them advice, and then typically get on the phone quickly at the end as we close the sale, just to make sure they understand everything they're buying and that they have what they need, and we get them set up and all of that sort of thing. But some of it is talking to people how they want to be talked to, right? Which doesn't seem that hard, but when was the last time you could sort of text and ask a question about something fairly complex and get a real person, not a bot, who can provide reassurance in that moment, right?
Right. Wow. And they approached you to via TikTok, Instagram.
Yeah.
All what? Yeah.
Oh, we're on Instagram as well. Although it's actually ironically, like you think all these new platforms are where it's at. It's actually our blog that drives a fair amount of traffic. It turns out that actually probably most of the traffic coming in from organically.
So organic, wow.
Yeah, organically, yeah. It turns out that a lot of the kinds of questions that we are answering, because we literally like hear it from our customer, answer it in the blog, are questions that nobody else is really answering well, which seems ridiculous, right? Like, how could a startup actually, end up anywhere near the top or get any kind of click-through rate on auto insurance topics? Hasn't that been done to death by every one of the carriers?
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, there's a bunch of search terms that were like ranked #1 or that we've got kind of like the SERP features or whatever. And it's because we're answering really specific questions that come up repeatedly, right?
But organic growth is not very hard to be as a B2C.
It absolutely is. And so we're not completely organic. We also have distribution partnerships
Okay.
with basically with companies whose customers need insurance, who are in our target group, who are not going to provide their own insurance or don't have an insurance arm.
So
And
kind
then
of embedded insurance, or
embedded in the sense that, yes, often embedded in their purchase flows, or embedded as an option after point of sale for
Mhm.
whatever our partner is doing. But I don't actually believe in embedded. I'll come back to that in one sec.
Yeah,
And then we do
sorry.
some paid leads in areas where we can find them economic. We run them through our lead scoring model and keep our CAC nice and low. And that actually has worked. We've got clever marketing staff, and that's actually worked pretty darn well. And we've grown pretty explosively. We grew like more than 30% a month on average, month over month through all of 2023. So put in some policies on the books, which is awesome. But yeah,
Nice.
embedded. So all right, so now I'm gonna like say the opposite of what all of the Trend Watch 2024 articles say. I don't believe in embedded for most cases. I think embedded is
You know what?
amazing.
In your
Yeah,
in your
yeah,
answer,
yeah.
please separate it personal and commercial.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna leave commercial aside for the moment. I
Okay.
have lots of thoughts on commercial, but we're largely personal lines that surround. So I'll
Okay.
start
Okay.
there. I don't believe in embedded as a general thing. I think that embedded is really fantastic for things that are simple. Like, I'm going to take an Amtrak train from Boston to New York, and I'm going to buy $7 of
Mhm.
cancellation coverage or whatever, because I understand what I'm buying. There aren't a lot of options and it's cheap. So it kind of doesn't matter that much. But also, the downside of if something goes wrong is inconvenient rather
Mhm.
than horrific, right? I mean, okay, I might have to wait at Penn Station. Okay, I might end up taking a bus home. Like there's options. What I think the embedded trend misses is that what people are buying when they buy insurance is not just insurance. They're buying a feeling of safety, of reassurance, of knowing they've done the right thing,
Peace of mind.
of yeah, peace of mind. It really is. And that sounds so old-fashioned to say, but really, how like Dr. Google never makes you feel better when you're sick because it's always cancer. Like, the same is true of completely online insurance. Like, you get to the end and you're like, is this right? What about the fact that the car is registered in Georgia? Does my name need to be on the title? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And typically you pick up the phone, right? Or text or whatever. And so I think what we're trying to do is to use beautiful design and really smart technology to strip away all of the pieces of the insurance purchase experience that are rote, that are faster done by typing than by communicating with somebody, that maybe happen at all, but we've done them historically. All of that, we're trying to strip it away and turn it into something digital. But then what we're doing is matching you at the point of sale with a really knowledgeable, really warm person who helps you make sure you have what you need. And that's what builds loyalty. The flip side of it is to now flip around to the other side, which is that it also means that we have really excellent loss ratios, particularly for newish agency with largely new business, given how fast we're growing. And some of it is you put that person in between, and they just, especially experienced insurance people, they just get a sense of, if you ask the questions, have you been in an accident recently? Oh, well, and that sort of thing. So it's an underwriting thing too.
Wow. And especially the underwriting with loss ratio with younger adults.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very, very interesting because once you remain your, hopefully, of course, that would, the positive loss ratio with younger adults within personal lines,
Yeah.
especially in car insurance, is
Yeah.
pretty tough, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it
Wow.
is, especially in this environment. And I think that is some of it. I think too, Some of these product types, because they're less common, there's just less competition, right? So I think that makes a difference as well. But yeah, I mean, having a person involved, it does matter. Like I'd like to sort of say, oh, AI will fix all of this, right? But I don't actually believe that. I think what
okay.
yeah, I think what
I
AI
just wanted to, do you really believe it? Okay, so yeah.
yeah, no, no, I don't. I think that what AI, and I mean, sometimes we use the word AI to mean some machine learning, to mean just algorithms, right? Like
Right.
you could build an Excel, it doesn't even matter, whatever. All of this, to me, the purpose of it is how do we implement it as cost effectively as possible so that we can make our people shine in the roles that people are best at, right? And what people are best at is connecting to other humans. We have, 100,000 years of history that has allowed us to function in groups and to make each other feel better and to sort of influence each other to kind of do the right things and take care of ourselves the right way, right? So how do we use technology to get rid of all of the stuff that nobody really wants to be doing, that a machine can do more intelligently, but that is so complex in the insurance industry, so that we can elevate that human connection, right? That's I think what makes us different from some of the other approaches that I see out there. And that approach can be applied to any kind of insurance, really. I mean, right now we do a lot of auto of various kinds and, renters insurance and a little bit of pet and that sort of thing. But we're broadly licensed. You can think about how that could apply to a lot of different kinds of coverages as well.
So you don't believe the generative AI will be dominate in the near future?
I think it may well dominate a
Because
lot of back office
sorry, I
processing.
will expand my
Yeah.
question.
Go for it.
I am a new driver and I want to
Yep.
travel from New York to Virginia.
Yep.
For the example, okay,
Yeah.
and I will ask ChatGPT, what
Yep.
do I need to do
Yep.
about the
Yeah.
insurance? And it will
And
give me
yeah,
the answer, maybe.
it will give you an answer for sure.
Great. So, but in the near future or in the future, it will be
Yep.
much, much better. In that,
Sure. Yep. Yep. It absolutely will be. Um, yes. The reason you're asking the question, though, and there's going to be different consumer segments as well, right? There are people
right.
who are like, great, I'll take whatever ChatGPT is offering from their, marketplace that they've now got where they can connect me with my insurance. But I'd say a couple of things. First, I think a lot of people still want to be like really, really sure. Like if they bother to ask, right? Then they're kind of like, is this really true? I also think that
Like Dr. Google.
yeah, it's like Dr. Google, like, like
It
Dr.
will be
Google, unfortunately,
Professor
sometimes it's right.
ChatGPT.
Sometimes it's right, right? And yet you're still going to go to your doctor, probably, hopefully,
Hopefully, yeah.
I think too, this goes back to like simple versus complex needs. So perhaps, do I need insurance to drive from here to New York or whatever? It's a very limited trip. Probably I'm not, yes, you should have insurance, but like probably I'm not driving that much. I'm going to drive for about 3 hours if I'm leaving Boston, no big deal. But on the other hand, if I ask ChatGPT, what kind of insurance do I need for my house? Or do I have the right kind of insurance in a hurricane? Where the downside is my house burns down, my family's camping on the front lawn, and I can't afford to rebuild. I think that's a really different kind of question. And I think that's where people are going to want to connect with humanity, And I think one proof of that is that I believe the first auto insurance policy was sold online in the US in 1995. I think I've got that right. It was around about that time. So it has been, 30 years since we could buy car insurance online. And I'm telling you, the percentage of people who go straight through and buy an auto insurance policy online without ever talking to the carrier staff, if you're buying direct to consumer, is probably high single digits, maybe low double digits. And that's exactly the reason why. It's not that they don't have everything in there, but it's that your car is your livelihood if you have to get to work, right? And so there's this moment of, is this really, really what I need? And how do I tell, I've got a loan on my car, how do I tell them what I've got? And, is this really okay in my state? And I don't understand, I have medical insurance. Do I need this PIP or this med pay? Is it the same thing or not? Like all of that. A person can solve those issues in 90 seconds, but it's not really the answer you want. It's the feeling that you're safe.
Still, the younger adult, even though they consume their, not even on Google, but on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, especially on
Yeah.
YouTube,
Yeah.
they are still want to consult with a human being.
They do. I really believe this. And that may change 50 years from now or 100 years from now. But like so many other things, so you change with the market to what people are looking for, right? But it's not going to be quick and it's not going to be soon. I mean, it's like there's some kinds of agents that have disappeared entirely in our world, right? Like travel agents generally don't exist anymore. But the reason is that for the most part, with the exception of kind of luxury travel and that sort of thing, when you're buying a trip, you kind of know what you're buying. Like if I'm booking a flight to Miami and I'm going to stay at a Hilton, I don't need somebody to tell me what any of those are going to be like, right? So therefore the agent gets disintermediated away because the customer can take on that work, right? But that's really not true in insurance, right? Like most people don't know insurance well and they're not sure of what they need. And the downside of being wrong about choosing the Hilton is that, like, you know, you're a block further from the beach than you had hoped to be, or the restaurant in the building is not great, or whatever. I don't know. The downside of choosing the wrong insurance policy, at least for things that are, you know, expensive, like your car accident, your home, whatever, is absolutely catastrophic. And so I think it's a space in which agents are here to stay.
And yet, as a travel, also travel industry,
Yeah.
the users or the consumer become more and more smart.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
yeah.
if I'm right now, I'm 21, I'm not 21, but if I'm the 21, the younger adults that you approach, I will explore and investigate about what I want to buy, if it's in car insurance, and then I will go to Kate and ask her.
Yep.
But more professional way, not what.
Yes. They're so smart because they've read our blog, they've read somebody else's, they've gotten some weird advice that didn't quite add up. And part of the reason they're calling you is that they're hearing different things from different people. But it is fundamentally a really smart demographic, younger adults, right? Like, you know, I think sometimes there's a tendency in the industry to blow younger people off. Like they don't know stuff and they're always on TikTok and whatever, but they're doing research. You know, I mean, like the questions they come in with are really good questions, and I think that matters. Like honestly, some piece of this is just treating younger customers with the respect that they deserve as fellow humans, which is not how our industry always treats them, right?
And the reason, I guess, that you surround is in TikTok or in Instagram because all the consumer consume that kind of product or that kind of materials through TikTok. They will not ask, first of all, the insurance agent of their parents and so on.
No, they're not driving down to the local insurance agency and like pulling up in the lot and being like, hi, I'm here to talk about my insurance, right? Certainly the insurance agent is not coming to their home and sitting down with them at the kitchen table, right? Like that's like a thing from, I don't know, a long time ago. It's not,
from
it's
the
not
80s,
now.
I think, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think there's that like rule of thumb that you have to touch somebody like 18 times before they'll buy from your brand. And I don't know if that is true or isn't true. And certainly marketing attribution is really hard when you try to trace the whole consumer journey in a complex industry like insurance. But typically what we have seen from what we can track and what our customers say is that they've been on TikTok, they've read a blog article, they've come back a different day through a paid campaign. They thought about coming in that day, but then they got distracted. They came back to our homepage and then they submitted a lead form. And then that was when we end up talking to them, you know? So you kind of have to be a lot of places where people are trying to learn and trying to investigate and talk to them in the medium that they want to use, right?
And
like
talk to me with my language and not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that makes a huge difference. And it makes a difference in terms of credibility as well, right?
Exactly. And you said before something very true and smart, because don't treat the younger as a foolish or they don't know anything. No, they are much sophisticated consumers than 10 years ago.
So much so. It's shocking. Yeah. I mean, so it's really two things. First of all, anybody who is coming to you because they are interested in insurance is already pretty sophisticated, right? They are looking to actively manage their risk. And if you're in this industry, it behooves you to treat that with respect, just like any other request, even if you can't help them and you're not the right place for them, right? Like we send people who we can't help someplace else all the time. We have things we do, we have things we don't do, right? We have a list of really good providers in other segments of the industry that we send people to because it's the right thing to do. So I think that is sort of huge, like that kind of respect. But then the other thing that I would say is that, the whole industry is sort of oriented on the distribution side for personal lines around getting these preferred and ultra preferred customers, right? Like you want like the 2-car, 1 home, maybe a boat, whatever households, because they're lowest loss ratio, they have highest retention. That is all true. But it's also true that the marketing costs of getting at those people because they have good retention, et cetera, is sky high, and they don't need you. They've got plenty of options, right? But the thing is, every one of those customers was non-standard once, right? Because how do we define a non-standard customer? Typically, the biggest piece is somebody who doesn't have prior insurance. You know what? We were all new insurance customers at one point in time. And so part of what we are doing is trying to get to people early in their insurance lifetime, growing with them as they grow so that as they develop into preferred customers, they're still our customers. We can just offer them, great counseling and a different set of products as they grow into needing more things.
Well, okay, wow. We are closing to the end. What drives and motivates you on your current role? You first of in Surround, you was a chief operating right officer, and then became the chief, the CEO.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I became CEO just about a year ago.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah. This is the best job I've ever had. It really, really is. I mean, I enjoyed being the co-founder, but stepping into the CEO seat it is different. It is such an inspiring place to sit. I have a team around me of people who are way better at what they do than I am. And I know because I tried to do all those jobs too when we were very early on, right? As you have to as a startup founder. And what they come up with together, because we have this really bright, really collaborative, really like intellectually challenging, but also deeply kind team is amazing. And so what you can bring to the market starts with what you can generate in terms of your own team and your own culture. And then we turn that externally to the customers we serve. And I read like the Google reviews and the notes we get. And I mean, I'm so proud of them and of what we're doing. And I think we can change the way insurance is sold and be the go-to brand of choice for younger consumers. And that's a big vision and an inspiring vision. So I don't know, it's the greatest job I've ever had. It really is. The hardest job too, probably, but the greatest job.
I see how your smile change in a positive way once you talk about it. So yeah, I think your face say it all.
I'm a very bad poker player, it turns out.
I will remember that for the next time. Any closing thoughts that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would share in closing, we didn't really touch on it, but for people who might be listening who maybe are earlier in their career or maybe even aren't in insurance and made it this far through, this is a huge, varied, fascinating industry that touches on nearly every person's life, both in their work life and their home life. And it may not be the coolest place to learn, but it may be one of the most interesting places to have a fulfilling career. And so I would highly encourage people to think about the insurance industry and think about the range of options available to them because it's fun.
Love it. So in a personal way, do you have any recommendation or insight you would like to share, perhaps like food, movies, books that you recently read, enjoyed?
Oh, food and movies and books and gosh, I read constantly. I'm trying to think of whether I have a particularly I did like Annie Duke's recent book. I'm losing the title, but about sort of risk and managing risk. That was a really interesting read that people might really like. Yeah, gosh. Other than that,
Risk
my
and
favorite
management.
read. Yeah, go ahead.
The name Risk and Managing Risk?
No, I'm sorry, I'm
This is-
forgetting the name of it. Annie Duke wrote a book on like poker playing and risk management, and it's really a fantastic read. And it's got a much cleverer title that's
Okay, send me
really
a
down
link.
to me.
Send me a
I
link
will
to
send you
Amazon
a
to buy.
link for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
no, for sure. Podcasts, I really like Infinite Loops.
Okay.
And I mean, the Huberman podcast, but I feel like that's like a startup CEO thing you have to like. And the Knowledge Project as well. I think those are both great kind of general purpose listens. Food, whew, I don't know. I'm not so fancy. I live kind of out in a more rural area, literally across the street from a farm. And so we don't have a lot of like interesting takeout or anything like that. There have been times in my life where there's been much more interesting food than right now.
So, Kate, thank you very much. Say hello for me to Mail and Lulu, right?
Yep.
Nice. Okay. So thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed the
Oh,
conversation.
thanks. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.